هلو. النهاردة هنحل امتحان نوفمبر 19 variant 2. هنركز على الأسئلة الصعبة. We will focus on the difficult questions. Okay. Question number 1 جايب لي dichotomous key بس بطريقة مختلفة شوية. ايه الطريقة بقى؟ عادة usually you get the pictures and you should identify which organism أو the name of each organism. أما هنا هو جاب لي pictures okay of 4 arthropods and then he asked a question. ايه question? State 2 features visible that are common to all arthropods. ايه features اللي موجودة in all arthropods؟ يعني common بالنسبة للإنسكتس arachnids crustacean. ايه الحاجات اللي موجودة in all؟ عندي 3 features. أول حاجة segmented body. The body is divided into parts. Number 2 عندي exoskeleton. Okay. Number 2 عندي exoskeleton إن there is an external skeleton كده. Number 3 إن أنا عندي jointed legs. legs في joints هنا وهنا that allows the legs to move. يبقى what are the features that are common to all arthropods؟ التلات حاجات اللي موجودة في كله. أقول له jointed legs number 1. number 2 segmented body أو ممكن برضو exoskeleton. ماشي. There is the dichotomous key. برضو in one of the November exams he gave you the key and said what is this key called? So you were supposed to answer dichotomous key. Dichotomous key for the arthropod is shown. He gave me the first box and these 2 boxes were missing. There were no answers here. طيب what should I do? الجملة اللي مكتوبة هنا the sentence here should decide or should have an answer with a yes or a no to differentiate between the organisms. طيب let us start. Box number 1 قال لي the animal has more than 10 pairs of legs. If yes then it is D. أهو if yes then the animal is D. If no يبقى هتبقى حاجة من دول. It's either A or B or C. طيب and then the next box I should ask a question. If yes the animal is B يبقى هبص على B. أنا I need a sentence that differentiates B from the other organisms. ممكن أقول مثلا animal has 3 pairs of legs. دول عندهم 4 pairs ودول برضو عندهم more than 3. Both of them have more than 3. يبقى if the animal has 3 pairs of legs then it is B. لو لأ هيبقى A or C. okay. يبقى ممكن أقول animal has 3 pairs of legs أو animal has wings. هنا في wings هنا مفيش wings. okay. if no بقى I need another sentence to differentiate A from C. ايه اللي بيدifferentiate A from C؟ هنا مثلا claws are different in size. يبقى are the claws different in size? If yes then it is animal A. If no it is animal C. يبقى دايما the sentences written here should differentiate between organisms. okay. question B جاب لي سؤال. It looks strange but actually it is very easy. The Hawaiian happy face spider is found on several Hawaiian islands. Some of the spiders have distinctive pattern on their bodies as shown. It looks like a smiley face. طيب قال لي suggest one feature that identifies it as an arachnid. احنا عارفين ان الانسكتس عندهم 3 pairs of legs. Arachnids عندهم 4 pairs of legs while the crustacean have 5 or more pairs of legs. طيب يبقى what identifies this as an arachnid? It has 4 pairs of legs. طيب scientists think that the pattern is an adaptive feature. Explain the term adaptive feature with reference to this pattern. يبقى أنا هنا مفروض أعمل إيه؟ عليها 3 marks. I should tell him what is the adaptive feature, إيه الدefinition بتاعها أصلا, and then you tell him a feature in this spider that acts as an adaptive feature. يبقى إيه هي الadaptive feature? It is an inherited functional feature that helps the organism to survive and reproduce in its environment. لو نراجع برضو على definition of fitness, it is very similar to the definition of adaptive feature. الفitness هو ايه؟ Probability of the organism to survive and reproduce in its environment. طب what is the adaptive feature? It is the inherited functional feature that helps the organism to survive and reproduce in its environment. يبقى they're very similar. دي الكاركتر نفسها and this is the feature that helps the fitness. طيب, after I explained الadaptive feature, I have to refer to the pattern بقى. الباترن on the body, السمايلي فيس دي, ممكن تكون ليه؟ Any reason. يا إما أقول له it helps to scare away البريداتورز مثلا, أو for camouflage, hide from البريداتورز, or attract الprey. ممكن مثلا السمايلي فيس ده attract الprey which is the food for the spider. So any reason that comes to your mind and it is logical, I can write it. طيب, the DNA can be extracted from the webs of the spiders. This DNA is used to identify the species of the spider and the species of the prey caught. Explain how the DNA extracted is used to identify the different species. How do we use the DNA to identify or classify the species? بقول ايه بقى هنا؟ أول حاجة, we identify the organism, أهم حاجة using the base sequence of the DNA. البيس sequence دي اللي هي النيتروجين bases. يبقى number 1, we use the nitrogen base sequence of the DNA and we compare it together. If they have the same sequence, then they are the same species. If there are small number of differences, then these organisms are closely related. طب what if there are big number of differences? يبقى they are distantly related. Okay? This is how we use the base sequence to identify a different species. Okay. D. Many species are thought to be endangered. State 3 reasons why animals become endangered. I choose any reason بتخلي البوبوليشن تقل. Any reason that decreases the population. زي ايه مثلا؟ Lack of food, spread of diseases, hunting, okay? عندي predators, increased predators. ممكن ايه كمان؟ يبقى predators ممكن pollution, increased pollution. All of these reasons هتقلل البوبوليشن, so they will be at risk of extinction. يعني they become endangered. طيب, question number 2, choose part of a cross section of the stem. Draw a circle around vascular bundle. احنا عارفين ان الستم the vascular bundle are multiple and peripheral, while in the root they are single and central. طيب, this is a stem. يبقى the vascular bundle are multiple and peripheral. اهو, I just circle one of them and then label the xylem in the vascular bundle. فين الزايلم؟ Xylem inside, phloem outside. Always the xylem is inside and the phloem is outside. هنا وهنا, in the root and the stem, xylem جوه, phloem بره. يبقى I will label the xylem like this, a line extending, and label it with an X. Explain how the cells in area Y are able to support the stem. ازاي الplant cells, how do the plant cells help in support? How do they help in this? Do they help in support? لأن احنا قلنا إن plant cells are usually turgid. يعني إيه turgid؟ يعني they are firm, they are hard. So this helps the plant to stand upright and lift the leaves upwards. يبقى when he asks you to explain ازاي cells in Y are able to support the stem، أنا هعمل إيه هنا؟ I will explain how do they become turgid. هقول له إيه؟ Water is absorbed by osmosis down the water potential gradient. When the water enters the cell by osmosis, they become turgid. طب what happens when the cells become turgid? The cell membrane and the vacuoles push out, while the rigid cell wall pushes back. يبقى the cell membrane pushes out while the rigid cell wall pushes back. الريزيستنس بتاع السيل وول ده بيعمل لي حاجة اسمها turgid pressure، ضغط كده يخلي السيل تبقى very firm so it can support the stem of the plant. يبقى again water is absorbed by osmosis down the potential gradient, so the cells become turgid, they become firm. How does this happen? By resistance. The cell membrane pushes out while the cell wall resists this pressure. Okay? This is how the cells support the plant. طيب. C. Researchers used carbon dioxide that contained a traceable source of carbon. استخدموا carbon dioxide that has traceable source of carbon. يعني ايه traceable source؟ يعني مثلا بيطلع radiation. So when I look at the plant أنا أقدر أحدد الكربون دايوكسيد ده موجود فين أو الكربون ده موجود فين. To investigate the translocation of sucrose from the leaves. Figure 2.2 shows that the glucose produced in photosynthesis is converted to sucrose for translocation. احنا عارفين ان البلانت absorbs carbon dioxide and then it produces glucose from photosynthesis. And then the glucose is converted to sucrose which is translocated all over the plant. طيب تعالوا نشوف بقى هنا. Researchers selected 4 plants Q, R, S and T which had leaves of similar sizes. And then they gave the plant الكربون دايوكسيد الليبلد ده. طب هو ليه labeled؟ عشان أقدر أشوف هو راح فين بعد كده. After the leaves started to make sucrose, the researchers cut away rings of tissue in different places. The rings of tissue they removed contained phloem. يبقى زي ما احنا شايفين كده they removed part of the stem which contained the phloem. The quantities of the sucrose containing الكربون اللي labeled ب 13 ده in the shoot tips and in the roots were determined. اداني table وبيقول لي this is the quantity of carbon found in the shoot and in the root in each plant. بالنسبة لplant Q there was الcarbon was found in the shoot in the upwards and downwards in the root. ليه؟ because هنا there was no phloem removed. أنا ما شلتش أي phloem. So the carbon moved upwards and downwards normally through the sucrose. طب what about هنا؟ الكربون أو السكروز will be found here but it will not be found here. ليه؟ Because I cut part of the phloem so the sucrose cannot be transported. طب هنا السكروز أو الكربون is found upwards but it is not found in the root. Why? Because you cut part of the phloem downwards. هنا بقى it is not found here or here because you cut part من هنا و part from here. طيب السؤال بيقول لي describe and explain the effect of removing the phloem on the translocation of sucrose. يبقى part and There is 5 marks for it. So part of the question should answer the describe and part should answer the explain. In description, you describe the table. Just observation. I will observe and describe the table. هقول له ايه؟ In Q, sucrose is found in the shoot and the root. While in R, it is in the root only. In S, shoot only. In T, it is not found in both. Okay. Explanation بقى. Why did this happen? I have to explain ليه الريزلتس طلعت لي كده. Number 1, I know that the phloem is responsible for the translocation of sucrose from the leaf, which is the source, to the roots and the shoot, which is the sink. So, when you remove part of the phloem, this sucrose will not be translocated. It will not move to the sink. This is why the experiment gave me these results. طيب. Question number 3. Question number 3. Cells in the lining of the stomach secretes the gastric juice, which contains hydrochloric acid and pepsin. State 2 roles of the hydrochloric acid. ايه الرولز بتاعت ال HCl؟ أول حاجة it gives optimum pH, optimum acidic pH for the pepsin enzyme. Number 2, it is very acidic, so it helps to kill bacteria or kill pathogens. I can also write kill pathogens. طب what is the function of the pepsin? It is a protease enzyme, type of protease enzyme. يبقى it breaks down proteins into amino acids which are small and soluble. Define the term assimilation. يعني ايه assimilation? It is the movement of the digested food into the cells. طب after they go into the cells, الcells بتبدأ تستخدم الفود ده, so they become part of the cells. طب what about the definition of absorption? ايه هو الabsorption؟ الabsorption is the movement of the digested food from the small intestine into the blood. يبقى ال digested food it goes from the intestine to the blood, ده كده ايه؟ absorption. أما from the blood into the cells يبقى this is assimilation. C. There are stem cells in the epithelial tissue that forms the lining of the stomach. stem cells موجودة في اللايننج بتاع الستومك. Why؟ لما يقول لي ليه هي موجودة يبقى أكيد هو عايز الفانكشن of the stem cells. إيه الفانكشن of the stem cells بقى؟ They divide by mitosis and then they form specialized cells. يعني إيه specialized cells؟ يعني cells with specific functions. هيعملوا لي الستومك cells. ليه؟ To replace the cells in the stomach lining for the repair of any tissue. Constantly كده the cells in the lining shed off and is replaced by new cells. Also, if there is any cell that is damaged, it is replaced by ال stem cells دي. يبقى number 1 they divide by mitosis and then they form specialized cells to replace ال damaged cells. The epithelial cells of the small intestine have microvilli. Any folding usually بيعمل ايه؟ Increases the surface area. Increase surface area. طيب أنا in the small intestine عندي الفيلاي اللي هي بتعمل الابزوربشن. When they enlarge this part لقوا إن السيلز اللي على السيرفس بتاعت الفيلاي عاملة كده. They are rectangular cells كده شوية and they have microvilli on their surface. ايه الفانكشن بتاع المايكروفيلاي؟ Further increase in surface area for more absorption of the digested food. يبقى كده أنا I will take the 2 marks. طيب, Lactobacillus is a type of bacterium. A study was carried out to investigate the ability of the lactobacillus to attach to the epithelial cells that form the lining of the small intestine. I want to see their ability to attach to the epithelial cells. They added the bacteria to the epithelial cells that had been grown in a petri dish. Every 15 minutes, they estimated the average number of bacteria that were attached. يبقى أنا هعمل إيه؟ I will add the bacteria to the cells, and then every 15 minutes I count the number of the bacteria attached. طيب, this is the time in minutes, and this is the average number of bacteria attached. The first question, calculate the percentage increase in the average number between 45 and 75. أعمل إيه؟ Number 1, I will determine the number at 45. أجي هنا كده في النص بالظبط، هطلع and then you go like this to determine the number. يبقى up with your ruler طبعا and the 45 and at 75. 75 pin exactly after 2 boxes and a half between the 70 and the 80. Go up with your ruler and then you go like this. طيب, النمبر طلعوا كام؟ 78 and 120. How do you calculate the percentage increase? You get the difference over the original number times 100. يبقى 120 minus 78 over 78 times 100. هيطلع لي الانسر with a decimal point. You have to round it up to the nearest whole number. It will be 54%. Okay. Question number 4. Explain how the human gas exchange system is protected against pathogens. How is it protected? عندي كذا طريقة. There is several mechanisms that provide protection for the gas exchange system. أول حاجة mechanical barriers such as the hair in the nose. The hair in the nose ده بيعمل إيه؟ It traps the pathogens and prevents it from entering. Number 2, chemical barriers such as the mucus secreted by the goblet cells. عندي goblet cells شكلها كده وجنبيها ciliated cells. The goblet cells secrete the mucus that traps dust and bacteria, while the ciliated cells move the unclean mucus away from the lungs. يبقى this also protects you against pathogen. The third mechanism is by the cells. الcells دي بتعمل ايه؟ زي الفاجوسايتس. It carries out phagocytosis. طب what was phagocytosis? It engulfs and digests bacteria أو pathogens. This is the phagocytosis. B. Tuberculosis is a transmissible disease caused by a bacterial pathogen. The spread of this disease can be controlled by vaccination. How does a vaccination work? How does it protect against the transmissible diseases? Step number 1. Injection of weak or harmless pathogen. This pathogen has the antigen, which stimulates active immune response. It makes your active immunity work. When the active immunity works, lymphocytes produce antibodies, and some of them forms memory cells. This is the most important thing in the vaccination. The memory cells remains in the blood and gives you a long-term immunity. هتديني immunity that will stay with me for a long time. طيب, so if you get the infection again, if you are infected again, the response will be faster. This is the importance of the vaccination. طيب. Question C. TB is a disease that can be treated with antibiotics. HIV cannot be treated with antibiotics. Why is this? ليه الفيرال diseases ما ينفعش أعالجها بأنتيبيوتيك؟ أول حاجة viruses are not cells. They are called virus particles. هما مش cells. They are not living. They do not have cell walls. They do not have cell membranes. And they do not carry out protein synthesis. So the antibiotic has nothing to work on. مفروض ان الانتيبيوتيك بيعمل ايه؟ The antibiotic destroys these things. طب what if these things are not اصلا available? So the antibiotic has nothing to work on. This is why it is not treated using antibiotics. D. Lung cancer is a disease that is strongly linked with smoking tobacco. Figure 4.1 shows the data about smoking and lung cancer in country A. Percentage of male population that smokes tobacco, or percentage of females, and death. Death in males, death in females from the lung cancer. He gave you a key. قال لي solid line is the male smoking. Dotted line is the female smoking. Dashed line, big dashes, death in males, while the small dashes are death in females. أول سؤال قال لي describe the differences between the percentages of males and females in country A that smoke. Country A. I want to describe the differences ما بين males and the females that smoke. Only between these two graphs. طيب هقول له ايه؟ Number 1. Percentage of males that smoke increases faster than the percentage of females. You will find that this line is steeper. The steepness indicates in the increase في males is faster than the increase is in females. Number 2. Higher percentage of males smoke higher than the females. Number 3. البيك اللي هي highest point is earlier in males than in females. البيك في الميلز حصلت الأول. يبقى البيك in the males is earlier than the peak in the females. ممكن ايه كمان؟ أقارن ال difference. Can you see هنا the difference between them was big. لكن after the peak أو مثلا after 1960 the difference between the percentages of male and female decreased. Of the males and the female smoking decreased. يبقى this is another difference between the graphs. إن في الأول الفرق كان كبير while after 1960 the difference became smaller and smaller. كده I just described the differences. You do not need explanation هنا. Okay, double I بقى. قال لي figure 4.2 shows the same smoking statistics بس for country B. Country B. Discuss the evidence for and against this statement. السؤال ده بقى recently it is repeated in many exams. بيقول لي ايه بقى؟ The changes in the percentage of population that smoke and the death from lung cancer is the same or follows the same trend in males and females. عايزة evidence from the graph that is with this statement and evidence that is against this statement. طيب ايه اللي with evidence for؟ هبص على country A. I want to compare الميلز والفيميلز. يبقى هقول له ايه؟ number 1 smoking in males and females increase and then decrease. يبقى this is for the statement. Also, the death in lung cancer in males and females increase then decrease. يبقى هنا both males والfemales follow the same trend. What else? Number 3, both show a lag between the peak of smoking and the peak of death from lung cancer. يعني ايه lag؟ يعني البيك from smoking بتحصل الأول and then the peak from lung cancer. Peak from smoking happens first and then the peak for lung cancer. يبقى this is also the same in males and females. طيب, is there evidence with الstatement in country B؟ ايه اللي with الstatement in country B؟ percentage of men and women who smoked decrease. لو بصيت كده هلاقي ان السموكينج in males كان هنا وبعدين بقى هنا. السموكينج in females كان هنا وبعدين بقى هنا. يبقى both of them overall they decreased. Same pattern. ايه تاني؟ number of deaths in both increased. If I will compare males and females هلاقي ان الdeath هنا زاد اهو increased and the death in females also increased. Okay, what are the evidence against؟ بالنسبة للevidence against هقول ايه بقى؟ ايه against this statement؟ Where are the graphs not showing the same trend؟ مثلا number 1 percentage of female smokers fluctuate while male does not fluctuate. هنا I can see in females decreases increases. This is called fluctuation. يبقى this is a word I can use when I'm describing a graph. بالنسبة للفيميلز it fluctuate. أما الميلز it does not fluctuate. يعني تقريبا it is a decreasing كده. This is number 1. Number 2, the number of deaths in men continually increases while in the females it does not. الdeath in the males أهو increases while death in الفيميلز هي كانت بتزيد شوية لكن بعد كده it stayed constant. Okay? كده احنا خلصنا ال description أو describing evidence, giving evidence with the statement and evidence against the statement. This is how you solve these questions. Question number 5 was easy. جايب لي grass plants wind pollinated. باين قوي ان هي wind pollinated. Describe and explain how the features are adaptations for the wind pollination. يبقى I should tell him the feature and tell him how does it help. أولا الanther and the filament are hanging outside of the flower and the anthers are large. ليه؟ To produce large quantity of pollens and to let the wind move الanther to give out pollen grains. ايه تاني؟ الstigma is feathery. It is hanging outside and it has large surface area. Why is this? To catch the pollen grains that is carried by the wind. ماشي. One letter where meiosis occur. الميوزس بيحصل فين؟ في الأماكن اللي where the gametes are formed. طب where is the gametes formed هنا؟ It is formed in the anther. Pollen grains are formed in the anther. يبقى meiosis occurs at C. C, which is the anther. Wheat has flowers similar to those in 5.1 but they reproduce by self-pollination. يعني ايه self-pollination؟ يعني الأوفري and الanther are in the same flower. Self-pollination. ايه consequences؟ Consequences يعني results. So you can say advantages or disadvantages. زي ايه بقى؟ When it happens in the same flowers, you do not need wind and you do not need insect. أنا مش محتاجة pollinating agents. يبقى this is an advantage. No pollinators needed. No waste of pollen grains. It comes from the the pollen grains come from the anther to the stigma directly. مفيش حاجة بتبقى lost في الwind مثلا. However, self-pollination gives me less variation. Less variation دي ليها two consequences. إن plants will all the offspring will all look similar. When they are all similar, they are adapted to the same conditions. However, if the environment changed, they will not be able to adapt. يبقى all plants are adapted to the same conditions where they are found, and there is less adaptation to the changing environment. لو الانvironment بقى اتغيرت مش هيعرفوا يتعودوا عليه. آخر حاجة برضو when they are all the same there is an increased risk of dying from the same disease. ممكن يحصل إن الديزيز يسpread and it will kill all the plants available. C. Wheat is an important crop. In many countries, it can be infected by diseases leading to total loss of the crop, which results in famine. Famine is المجاعة. إن people they cannot find food to eat. Other than plant diseases, what can cause famine? إيه اللي يخلي إن يحصل food shortage؟ ممكن drought. يعني إيه drought؟ يعني there's no water so the plants is not growing. Flooding. Excess water that kills the plants. Earthquakes. Diseases. Spread of diseases in animals مثلا. So the animals die, the cows die, so there's no meat. War. People are fighting together, so no one is available for the agriculture and for farming الانيمالز. محدش فاضي ان هو يعمل الاكل. Loss of soil fertility. No plants, so no food. يبقى all these reasons can cause a famine. D. Black stem rust is a disease of wheat that is caused by a fungus. الفنجس affects the wheat causing this disease. Plant breeders هيستخدموا 2 varieties of wheat to produce a variety that is both rust resistant and has a high yield. يبقى أنا هعمل selective breeding or artificial selection in order to produce a variety that is resistant to this disease and also gives me a high yield of crops. How do they do this? Rust resistant variety crossed with high yield variety. It will give me an offspring. I will cross it with high yield. It will give me an offspring. الoffspring دي I choose from it one that is a rust resistant and then cross it with high yield again for several generations until I get a variety that is resistant and also has high yield. طيب, suggest how the breeders make sure that the plants they use is rust resistant. ازاي اختار من offspring one that is resistant? How will I know? How will you know that this one is resistant? ولا حاجة. You can identify the DNA, check that the DNA contains the gene for resistance, and then only use this plant. Also, you can expose it to the fungus, and then choose the plant that gives no symptoms. طالما هي تعرضت للfunctions وما ظهرش عليها symptoms, then it is resistant. يبقى how could you make sure إن ال offspring chosen is resistant? Expose it to the fungus and choose the one that shows no symptoms. Or check the DNA for the resistance gene. Suggest why step 3 is repeated over many generations before the new rust resistant is available. ليه لازم أكررها؟ Why it is repeated for many generations? I want to repeat it in order to increase the number of plants that are homozygous أو pure breeding for the resistance gene. يبقى you should repeat the process many times in order to make sure or to increase the number of offspring that will have a high yield gene and the resistance gene, and make sure that they are all pure breeding homozygous عشان بعد كده لما الفارمرز يستخدموهم يطلعوا لهم بقى الايه الرست resistant wheat. E. The wheats are monocotyledon plants. ايه feature of the monocotyledon that distinguishes from the dicots؟ في كذا حاجة. أولاً parallel veins in the leaves. Number 2, leaves are long and narrow. Number 3, the seeds have one cotyledon. Number 4, the roots are fibrous, while in the dicot they are tap root. طيب آخر سؤال في الامتحان. It's an easy question. Carbon dioxide forms approximately 0.04 of the atmosphere. This is the carbon cycle. You need to identify the letters. Carbon dioxide goes into the plants. How does it go into the plant? By photosynthesis. طيب الكول, oil and gas produce carbon dioxide. What did we do? Combustion. Number 3, decomposers, which are bacteria and fungus, they are releasing CO2. يبقى عملوا ايه هنا؟ Respiration, living organisms. Decomposers are living organisms that respire and produce CO2. آخر حاجة, plants turned into coal, oil and gas. This is called fossilization. They turned into fossil fuels, so this is called a fossilization. Last question, the complete. So you should study very well and you should make sure that you understand each part of the syllabus عشان recently بقى يجي complete questions كتير. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Greenhouse gas traps infrared radiation. Or I can say that they trap heat. Infrared radiation or a heat. طيب. Water vapor is the most common greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Another greenhouse gas is methane. الميثان بيجي منين؟ From the decomposition of dead bodies أو from the wastes of animals أو from sewage. All of these gives out methane gas اللي هو الغاز الطبيعي. Carbon dioxide and methane released from human activities over the past 200 years have contributed to what greenhouse effect? Enhanced greenhouse effect. طيب, we should understand that there is a natural greenhouse effect. Natural greenhouse effect اللي هو موجود على طول عشان الجو يبقى دافي. يبقى the natural greenhouse effect makes the weather warm for the humans to be able to live. لكن increased greenhouse gases عملت لي ايه؟ enhanced greenhouse effect. Let me write it again. Enhanced greenhouse effect. Other atmospheric pollutants can cause acid rain. One of these is the sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is a waste gas from the power stations, from the factories, and some factories uses coal. It gives out sulfur dioxide that dissolves in the rain to form acid rain. Another source of pollution in the aquatic and the terrestrial ecosystem is the non-biodegradable plastics. The plastics that are not broken down. Okay, كده احنا خلصنا variant 2. Thank you.